I should have known Reed had something planned for me the moment I walked into that backyard. The laughter, the chatter, the smell of grilled meat. It all felt staged, like Reed was center stage in his own little play. My daughter, Naomi, rushed to me, her arms warm, her smile soft. "Mom, you came. You look amazing." She held my gift, a delicate silver bracelet, and for a moment, I almost forgot why I dreaded these gatherings. But then Reed's voice cut through the air. "Mom finally made it," he said, spatula in hand, wearing his ridiculous King of the Grill apron. His tone was friendly enough for the guests, but the smirk at the corner of his mouth was meant only for me. I kept my smile polite, even when he added, "Come on, Mom. Let's get you seated before you get too tired." Naomi pointed to the chair beside her, right at the center of the long white draped table. I walked toward it, holding my wine glass carefully. I thought, just this once, maybe I'd blend into the background. But Reed wasn't going to allow that. He stepped in, quick and smooth, pretending to be the gentleman. "Here, let me help you, Mom." His hand reached for the chair. Only instead of pulling it out, he jerked it to the side. My body tipped. My feet scrambled. And then I hit the ground. Wine splashed across my dress, dark stains blooming across the navy fabric. For a second, there was silence. Then Reed's laugh rang out, sharp and cruel. "Oh, come on, you belong on the floor." A few of his friends laughed, too. Not all of them. Some looked away, embarrassed, but enough to sting. Naomi froze, her face pale, her hands clutching at her napkin. I pushed myself up slowly, refusing to let him see me scramble. My heart pounded, but my voice was calm. That was uncalled for. Before Reed could answer, a steady voice spoke from behind me. "Let me help you, Mrs. Whitmore." I turned and saw Ashton Baxley, my new project manager. He reached out his hand with quiet strength. I took it, not because I needed the help, but because it was dignity offered in a moment meant to strip me of it. "Thank you, Mr. Baxley," I said, loud enough for every guest to hear. Reed blinked in confusion. "Wait, you two know each other?" Ashton looked Reed dead in the eye. "Of course. She's my boss." The yard fell silent. Forks froze. Wine glasses hovered midair. I straightened my shoulders. My voice didn't tremble. "Yes, Reed. Ashton works for me. Whitmore Construction." I let the words hang, heavy. "You might have heard of it. We built half this town." Naomi's face went white. Her hand covered her mouth as if she'd been caught in a lie. My granddaughters, Ella and Maddie, stared at me like they were seeing me for the first time. "Grandma?" Ella whispered. "That's you?" Reed's smirk faltered, his jaw tightening. You run Whitmore Construction?" His voice cracked like a boy's, not a man's. I looked him square in the eyes. "I don't just run it. I built it. From nothing. 40 years of work. While you were busy mocking me as some old woman, I was signing contracts larger than your annual income." Gasps rippled across the table. Whispers buzzed from guest to guest. One man, a city official I vaguely recognized, muttered, "She's a legend." Reed slumped back into his chair, pale and sweating. Naomi's hands trembled as she tried to smooth the tablecloth, as if she could iron the tension out of the air. My granddaughters looked at me with wide, admiring eyes. And for the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me, freedom. I lifted my stained dress slightly, a queen brushing off dirt. "Thank you all," I said with calm dignity. "Please enjoy the meal. I think I've had enough for today." I walked away from the table as Reed's laughter died in his throat, leaving only silence behind me. But I knew as I stepped out of that backyard that this was far from over. Reed would not let this humiliation pass quietly. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I would either. Because the mask had slipped, and once it slips, there's no putting it back on. The sound of my doorbell that night felt like a gunshot through the silence. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Rage has its own kind of knock, sharp, impatient, almost shaking the walls. I opened the door, and there he stood.
Reed.
His face was still flushed from the barbecue, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes glassy with humiliation and drink. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and harsh. I held the doorframe. "This isn't a good time, Reed. Let's speak tomorrow, when you've calmed down." But he shoved his way forward, his body blocking out the night.
No.
"We'll talk now." I stepped aside, not out of fear, but out of choice. If he wanted a confrontation, he would get one on my terms. I gestured toward the living room.
Fine.
"Sit."
He didn't.
He paced, fists clenching and unclenching. "Do you have any idea what you did tonight? You made me look like a fool in front of everyone I know." I lowered myself into the chair Henry used to sit in, calm and steady.
No, Reed.
"You made yourself look like a fool when you pulled that chair out from under me." His head snapped toward me. "It was a joke." His voice cracked. "And you humiliated me. You could have kept your mouth shut. You didn't have to expose yourself like that." I felt my jaw tighten. "Expose myself?" I repeated slowly. "I didn't expose anything. I simply told the truth. Something you've spent years avoiding." His fists tightened again. "You lied to me. To all of us. For years I thought you were just some old woman who baked cookies."
And you let me think that.
I leaned forward, my voice cold but steady. "You never asked who I was, Reed. You were comfortable mocking me. You never looked deeper because it suited you not to." He stopped pacing, his chest heaving.
"So, what was the point?"
"Why did you keep it from me?" I met his eyes, and for the first time, I let the weight of the truth drop between us. Because from the very beginning, I saw you. I saw your ego. I saw the way you needed to feel superior. And I wasn't going to let my career destroy my daughter's marriage. So I stayed quiet. For Naomi. For the girls. He blinked, then laughed bitterly. "For me, you mean? You thought I couldn't handle it." I didn't flinch. And your reaction tonight proves I was right. For the first time, he faltered. His bravado cracked, and underneath was just a man drowning in his own insecurity. He slumped onto the couch, his voice smaller. "Do you have any idea how people will look at me now? The man who mocked one of the most powerful women in town without even knowing it." I sighed, the exhaustion sinking into my bones. "I'm more concerned with how you'll look at yourself. And what your daughters saw tonight." At the mention of the girls, his head jerked up. "Don't you dare bring them into this." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. They were already in it, Reed. They saw their father laugh at their grandmother when she was on the ground. What lesson do you think that taught them? He stared at me, speechless. Then, without another word, he stood and stormed toward the door. His voice shook as he hissed, "This isn't over, Merle. Not by a long shot." The door slammed, rattling the frame. I sat back in Henry's chair, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from the release of years of silence. I had spoken truths I had buried for decades, and now there was no taking them back. Minutes later, the doorbell rang again. Softer this time. When I opened it, Naomi stood there, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She stepped inside without a word and collapsed onto the couch where Reed had sat. For a long moment, she twisted the sleeve of her blouse between her fingers, silent. "Finally," she whispered. "Was Reed here?" I nodded. "Half an hour ago. He's furious." Tears welled in her eyes. "I've never seen him like this. He feels betrayed. And you know what? So do I." Her words cut deeper than Reed's ever could. I swallowed hard. "Naomi, I thought I was protecting you." She shook her head. "Protecting me? You made me a liar. I've spent years pretending my mother was just a quiet retiree. I kept your secret, and now it's blown up in my face." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "You don't understand what this does to my family," she whispered. Her voice cracked, And in that moment, I realized the damage wasn't just to Reed's pride, it was to the fragile foundation of my daughter's life. And when Naomi finally lifted her eyes to mine, I saw something that chilled me more than Reed's threats. It was doubt. Naomi's words haunted me all night. "I don't even know who you are anymore, Mom." I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the old oaks creak outside the window. Henry had planted those trees 40 years ago, promising they would outlive us all. And now, as the storm winds rattled their branches, I wondered if my silence had cost me more than Reed's respect. It had cost me my daughter's trust. By morning, though, I did what I've always done. I put on my armor, a gray suit, a neat bun, a strong cup of coffee. Monday waits for no one, and neither does a company with 500 employees depending on me. At the office, Vera, my assistant of 15 years, handed me the day's agenda. Hospital contractors at 10. Bankers at 1. Baxley's presentation at 4. And she hesitated. Insurance partners review at 11:30. I froze at the word insurance. Reed's world bleeding into mine. "Put the file on my desk," I said quietly. I tried to bury myself in work, but Reed's voice from last night kept replaying. "You made me a fool. You destroyed my family." I shook it off and opened the insurance folder. 15 companies listed. Alliance Security at the top, solid numbers, fair terms. And midway down, Premier Insurance. Reed's company. Their numbers were stable, but unimpressive. And their current rates couldn't match the competition. I told myself it was simple. Numbers don't lie. Business is business. But a voice in my head whispered, "Naomi will see this as revenge." At 11:30, Vera stepped in. "Here are the comparative reports." I looked up. "What about Premier?" She adjusted her glasses. "Flat growth. Their offer doesn't compete. Alliance is stronger." I nodded, closing the folder. "Draft a request anyway. Let's give Premier a chance to renegotiate." I want it in writing. Vera studied me a moment. She knew me well enough to see the storm behind my calm. "Of course," she said softly. The hospital meeting passed in a blur. The banker's lunch was cordial, but forgettable. My mind wasn't in it. At 4, Ashton Baxley walked in with his presentation for the historic building renovation. He laid out blueprints, his voice steady, his ideas sharp. But before he started, he hesitated. "Mrs. Whitmore, may I say something personal?" I braced myself. "I didn't know about Saturday," he said carefully. "Albert, the man I spoke with at the party, told me Reed works at Premier Insurance. He said there could be conflicts." I met his gaze. There was no judgment, only concern. "I'm aware," I replied, tapping the folder on my desk. "And I'll handle it." He nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. "I just wanted to be sure. You've built too much to let personal matters interfere." I almost smiled. "That's one thing you'll learn about me, Mr. Baxley. I don't let family dictate my business." We moved into the presentation, and for the first time that day, my mind steadied. Ashton's ideas were strong, and his confidence reminded me why I'd hired him. The meeting ended well.
But the calm didn't last.
Because as I was gathering my papers, Vera stepped in again. "Your daughter is here. Should I send her in?"
"Naomi."
I closed my eyes for a moment. "Yes." She entered cautiously, looking around as if she were stepping into a foreign country. "This office," she murmured, "I've never even seen it before." "It's just walls and desks," I said. "Sit, Naomi. What's on your mind?" She clutched her purse like a shield. "Reed says you're planning to cancel Premier's contract. Is it true?" I held her gaze. "I'm considering it. Their offer isn't competitive." Her voice rose, sharper than I'd heard in years. "Don't you see how this looks? After Saturday, everyone will think you're out for blood." I stayed calm. "I don't care what people think. I care about what's best for my company." Her eyes filled with tears. "Reed could lose his job. Do you want that? Do you want to ruin us?" The words stung. I lowered my voice. Naomi, your husband ruined his own standing. I'm not punishing him. I'm making a business decision. She shook her head, her shoulders trembling. It's always business with you. Even now. Always the company first. Her words hit harder than Reed's threats ever could. I wanted to say, the company fed you, clothed you, sent you to college. But I didn't. Because behind her anger, I saw fear. Fear of her world crumbling. Fear of choosing between her husband and her mother. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Please, Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. If you care about me, if you care about us, don't do this. Don't take Premier away. And just like that, she left me with a silence heavier than any boardroom decision. I sat alone at my desk, the folder still open, numbers staring up at me like an accusation. Alliance or Premier? Logic or loyalty? Business or blood? For the first time in years, I didn't know which choice was right. When my phone buzzed with Reed's message, I knew exactly what it was before I even looked. Oak Garden Restaurant. Tomorrow. 1 p.m. We need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long moment. The Oak Garden wasn't just any place. It was Reed's arena, the polished playground for insurance agents trying to look more important than they were. Glass walls, white tablecloths, waiters who bowed a little too low. Reed wanted control back, and he thought meeting me on his turf would give it to him. The next day, I walked in 5 minutes early. A habit from business. Arrive before your opponent, claim the ground. But Reed was already there, nursing a glass of red wine like it was courage. He stood when he saw me. A rare gesture, awkward on him. Merle. Thanks for coming. I shook his hand lightly and sat across from him. You said you wanted to talk. So talk. He cleared his throat, eyes darting to the waiter before waving him away. First, I owe you an apology. For Saturday. For everything. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. I was wrong, he admitted, his jaw tight. I disrespected you for years. I didn't know who you were. And I'm sorry. The words should have felt satisfying, but they didn't. His voice lacked weight, like someone rehearsing lines. I stayed silent, letting the pause stretch. Finally, he leaned forward. Naomi tells me you're reconsidering Premier's contract. I wanted to offer a solution. There it was. The real reason. I've spoken to the higher-ups, he continued quickly. We're prepared to give Whitmore Construction exclusive terms, better than any competitor. I'll personally oversee everything. Priority service. Faster processing. You won't find a better deal. I set my hands on the table, steady as stone. So, you want to trade favors? My company for your career. His cheeks flushed. It's not like that. It's mutually beneficial. You get better coverage. I get to keep my department. Everybody wins. I let out a slow breath. And if I refuse?
His voice hardened.
Then I lose my job. My wife suffers. My daughters suffer. And you'll be the one responsible. The audacity of it struck me silent for a moment. Then I leaned in, my voice cold. Don't you dare put this on me, Reed. If your career hangs on one contract, that's your failure, not mine. His glass clinked as he set it down too hard. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Finally putting me in my place. I stared at him until he looked away. I don't need to put you anywhere, Reed. You've done that to yourself. He smirked bitterly, trying to recover his swagger. You think you've won. But this isn't over. You can't destroy me without destroying Naomi in the process. The mention of my daughter pierced sharper than any insult. My voice dropped low. If your marriage crumbles because of the truth, it's not me destroying it, Reed. It's the lie you built it on. For the first time, he had no reply. He shifted in his chair, the mask cracking. Desperation leaked through his every movement. I stood, pushing my chair back with deliberate calm. Thank you for lunch. My answer will come through official channels. Not family dinners. Not birthday parties. Business only. His eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. I leaned close, my voice just above a whisper.
No, Reed.
The only thing I regret is letting you think you could laugh at me without consequence. I left him sitting there, alone with his wine and his empty pride. Back in my car, I sat gripping the wheel, my breath unsteady. The meeting had shown me exactly who Reed was, not just arrogant, but desperate, manipulative, willing to use my daughter and granddaughters as leverage. But he had underestimated me, just like he always had. Because this time, I wasn't playing the quiet mother-in-law. I was playing myself. When the phone rang that evening, I almost didn't answer. My body was drained, my mind still heavy with Reed's threats. But then I heard my daughter's voice on the other end, shaking, broken. Mom, please. Don't make a decision yet. Please, not now. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. Naomi, I can't delay forever. The bids are on my desk. I have to choose. Her voice cracked. You don't understand. Reed, he's unraveling. He hasn't stopped talking about Saturday, about the restaurant. He feels like the whole town is laughing at him. If you cancel Premier's contract, he'll lose everything. I closed my eyes, forcing my voice steady.
No, Naomi.
He'll lose a contract. That's not the same as everything. There was silence. Then she whispered, You've always been like this. The words struck deeper than she intended. Like what? I asked softly.
Cold.
Practical. Business first. Even when Dad died, you didn't cry at the funeral. You just stood there, stiff as stone. Reed says you only care about control, about winning. And sometimes her breath caught. Sometimes I believe him. The accusations sliced me open. I wanted to shout, to tell her she didn't know how many nights I'd cried into a pillow where no one could hear. But I swallowed it down. Naomi, I said, my voice trembling despite myself, everything I've ever done, every late night, every deal, every decision was for you. To give you safety, choices, a life I never had. She didn't answer right away. I heard the sound of her pacing, the faint creak of floorboards. Then she said, What kind of safety do I have if my husband hates my mother? If my children watch their parents fall apart? My throat tightened. What kind of safety do you have if your husband's pride matters more to him than respect, for you, for me, for your daughters? There was a sharp inhale on her end. For a moment, I thought I'd broken through. But then her voice came back, weary and small. Please, Mom.
Just give him time.
Don't cancel Premiere yet. I'm begging you. I stared at the darkened window, my own reflection looking back at me. Wrinkled skin, tired eyes, but still the same woman who once fought to prove she belonged in a world of men. I'll consider it, I said finally. Her relief was audible. Thank you. But when the call ended, I sat in silence, realizing I hadn't promised her anything. Consider was not the same as agree. The next morning, Vera brought me Premier's revised offer. It was better than before, clearly rushed, clearly desperate, but still not as strong as alliances. I flipped through the pages, my fingers trembling. Vera studied me. You're hesitating. I forced a smile. Just weighing the numbers. But inside, I wasn't weighing numbers. I was weighing lives, Naomi's, my granddaughter's, even Reed's. At noon, I drove to Naomi's house, unannounced. She opened the door, her face pale but hopeful. Mom, I didn't expect you. Inside, the girls were at the table doing homework. Ella looked up with a grin. Grandma, did you pick alliance? Naomi's head snapped toward her. Ella, don't. But Ella pressed on. Dad says if you don't keep Premiere, we'll have to move. Is that true? I froze. Naomi closed her eyes, whispering, Reed shouldn't have said that. I crouched beside Ella, brushing a strand of hair from her face.
No, sweetheart. Moving isn't about me.
Your father's job is his responsibility, not mine. Naomi pulled me aside, her voice sharp. Do you see what this is doing? They're terrified. They think their lives depend on your decision. I whispered back, "No, Naomi. They think that because Reed wants them to." She shook her head, tears welling. "Please, Mom, don't make me choose between my husband and my mother." Her words crushed me because I knew she already was. I left soon after, my chest aching. Back at my house, I poured a whiskey and sat by the window, watching rain streak down the glass. Reed was cornered. Naomi was torn. And the girls, caught in the middle of a war they didn't deserve. But as the storm rumbled, I knew one truth. I had spent too many years silenced. Too many years pretending. And if Reed thought I would hand him my company to keep his pride intact, he had no idea who he was up against. The morning Vera slid the folder across my desk, I felt the weight of more than paper. "Premier's final offer," she said, her tone clipped. They delivered it by hand. I stared at the thick envelope, Reed's handwriting scrawled across the front like a challenge. My pulse tightened. This wasn't just business anymore. This was war. I opened it slowly, page by page. And there it was, slashed premiums, extended coverage, perks so generous they bordered on reckless. On paper, it almost matched Alliance Security's superior offer. Almost. But I could smell it between the lines. Desperation. Vera folded her arms. "They can't sustain this. Not long term. If we sign with them, we're tying ourselves to a sinking ship." I tapped the edge of the folder, my thoughts racing. "Or," I murmured, "we're tying ourselves to Reed." By noon, my phone rang. His number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "So?
Have you seen it?"
His voice was brisk, false confidence dripping like cheap cologne. "I've seen it," I replied evenly. "Then you know," he pressed. "No one else can give you terms like that. This proves I can deliver. It's good for you, good for me, good for Naomi and the girls." I clenched my jaw. "Reed, this is a business decision, not a family negotiation." There was a pause. Then his voice hardened. "Don't be naive. Everything overlaps. You cancel this contract, and I lose my job. You keep it, and you get the best deal in town. It's not charity, it's strategy." I almost laughed at the gall. Strategy? Or manipulation? His tone dropped lower, darker. "Call it what you want. But if you think Naomi and the girls won't blame you when I'm unemployed, you're mistaken. You'll be the villain in your own family." The words hit like a fist. Not because they were true, but because I knew Reed would make them true. I let the silence stretch, then spoke softly, firmly. "Reed, the only villain here is the man willing to use his wife and daughters as bargaining chips." Before he could reply, I ended the call. My hand trembled as I set the phone down, but my resolve didn't. That afternoon, Ashton Baxley came in with updates on the historic renovation. He noticed the folder still open on my desk. "Premier?" he asked cautiously. I nodded. "Reed's pulling every string he has left." Ashton hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Forgive me for saying this, but men like him, they don't just stop when cornered. They double down." His words echoed in my chest like a warning bell. By evening, Naomi showed up at my house again. Her face was pale, her hands restless. "He told me you hung up on him. Because he's trying to blackmail me through you," I answered coldly. Her eyes filled with tears. "He's scared, Mom. He's fighting for his job. Can't you see that?"
"No, Naomi."
"He's fighting for his pride. And dragging you down with him." She dropped into a chair, her voice breaking. "I don't know what to do anymore. He says if you cancel Premier, it's proof you've hated him from the start. And if you keep it, he'll forgive everything and move on." I sat across from her, my voice low but unflinching. Forgiveness isn't his to barter. Respect isn't his to withhold. He's not negotiating with me, he's exposing himself. Naomi covered her face, sobbing quietly. My heart ached, but I didn't move to comfort her this time. Some truths had to sting. When she finally looked up, her voice was raw. "If you cancel premiere, I don't know if my marriage will survive." I held her gaze, steady and pained. "If your marriage depends on me sacrificing integrity, Naomi, then it was never built to survive." The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. Later that night, alone again, I sat by the window with a glass of whiskey. The oaks outside swayed in the wind, their roots deep, unshakable. I thought of Henry's words long ago. "Some storms you shelter from, others you stand against." This was no storm to hide from, because Reed's gambit wasn't just a business ploy. It was a threat, a test, a line drawn in the dirt. And I knew the next move would define not just my company's future, but my family's. The boardroom smelled faintly of fresh coffee and tension. Sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, but the air inside was heavy, waiting. My executives were seated around the long oak table, papers and laptops spread before them. On the agenda, insurance contracts, final approval. What wasn't on the agenda was Reed. But when the doors opened and he walked in, dressed in a press suit that couldn't hide the desperation in his eyes, the room went silent. I didn't rise. I didn't flinch. I just watched him, calm as stone. Vera leaned toward me, whispering, "He wasn't invited." "I know," I murmured back. Reed strode to the front of the room like a salesman walking into a pitch. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began with forced cheer, "I apologize for the intrusion, but this concerns me directly. I'm Reed Holloway, Premier Insurance, and I believe we can clear up a lot of confusion right here, right now." The board exchanged glances. Ashton, sitting at the far end, folded his arms, eyes narrowed. I kept my voice measured. "This is a closed meeting, Reed. You don't belong here." He smiled tightly. "With all due respect, Merle, I do. Premier has served Whitmore Construction faithfully for years. And today, I'm here to make sure that partnership continues." He laid a folder dramatically on the table. "This," he declared, "is our final, best offer. Exclusive terms. Rates no competitor can match. Priority claims processing under my personal supervision. If Whitmore Construction stays with Premier, I guarantee no delays, no disputes. Everything will run smoother than ever." He looked around, fishing for approval. Some board members studied the papers curiously. Others frowned at the spectacle. I folded my hands. And why present this here in person? Why not through proper channels, as every other company has done? His jaw twitched. "Because this isn't just about contracts, Merle. This is about trust. About family." The word family made my blood run cold. Reed's voice rose with conviction. "For years, you let me believe you were just an ordinary retiree. Harmless.
Quiet.
Then, in one night, you humiliated me in front of my wife, my children, and half this town. You've shattered my reputation. But we can fix this. If you choose Premier, it proves you're not out to destroy me. It proves you still care about your daughter's family." A murmur rippled through the room. My board didn't know the family drama, but now Reed had dragged it into the open. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. My voice was calm, but carried an edge sharp enough to cut glass. "Let me make something very clear. Whitmore Construction does not make decisions based on personal grudges or family politics. We make them based on numbers, on stability, on what's best for the company." Reed smirked. "And yet if you cancel us, everyone will see the truth. That you wanted revenge on me. That you'd risk your daughter's marriage just to put me in my place." I locked eyes with him, unblinking.
"No, Reed.
"Everyone will see the truth. That you tried to bully a multi-million-dollar company to protect your fragile pride." His face reddened. "Fragile pride? I'm fighting for my family. By dragging them into boardrooms? By turning your wife into your shield? By making your daughters believe their grandmother is the reason their lives might fall apart." My voice rose, steady but fierce. "That's not fighting for family, Reed. That's sacrificing them. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the hum of the AC seemed to vanish. Finally, Ashton spoke, his voice cool. Mrs. Whitmore, if I may, Premier's numbers don't hold against Alliance security. They can't sustain what they're promising. This is desperation, not stability. Several board members nodded in agreement. Reed's mask cracked. He looked from face to face, his confidence evaporating. You can't do this. You can't just. I cut him off. The board has heard enough. Vera, please escort Mr. Holloway out. He froze, staring at me. Naomi will never forgive you. His voice was low, venomous. You're tearing this family apart. I leaned forward, meeting his glare with quiet steel.
No, Reed.
You've done that yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Vera guided him toward the door. His protests echoed down the hall, but they grew smaller, weaker, until the doors shut behind him. When I turned back, the board was watching me, not with doubt, but with something closer to respect. I straightened my notes, my hand steady now. Let's proceed. Alliance security is the stronger partner. All in favor? Hands rose around the table, one after another, unanimous. It was done. Reed had played his last card.
And he had lost.
The night after the board meeting, sleep refused me. I sat in my living room, the house cloaked in silence, the clock ticking like a drumbeat of unfinished war. I should have felt triumphant. The contract was secure, Reed exposed, my company stronger than ever. But victory tasted hollow, because battles of business end at a table. Family battles linger in the blood. By morning, Naomi called. Her voice was fragile. Mom, he's furious. He says you humiliated him in front of strangers. He says he's done. I felt a chill. Done with what? With everything, she whispered. With me. With the girls.
With you.
Please come over. I can't handle this alone. I drove in silence, the roads a blur. When I pulled into Naomi's driveway, I saw Reed's car crookedly parked, his anger visible even in metal and paint. Inside, the scene was chaos. Naomi stood pale by the kitchen counter, eyes swollen from crying. Ella and Maddie hovered by the stairs, fear written across their young faces. And Reed, he paced the living room like a caged animal, tie loosened, whiskey glass in hand though it was barely noon. The moment he saw me, his eyes narrowed. Well, if it isn't the queen herself. He sneered. Here to watch the kingdom you've ruined? I stepped forward, calm but firm. I came because my daughter asked me to.
Put the glass down, Reed.
This isn't the way. He laughed, bitter and sharp. Don't talk to me like I'm one of your employees. You don't own this house. You don't own me. Naomi's voice cracked as she tried to intervene. Reed, please. But he cut her off, pointing at me. She did this. She destroyed everything. My career. My reputation. Even my marriage. I met his fury with quiet steel.
No, Reed.
You destroyed those things yourself. I just stopped covering for you. His face reddened, veins rising in his neck. You think you're better than me because you built a company? Because you've got money and influence? You're nothing but a bitter old woman who couldn't stand to see her daughter happy. The words sliced deep, but I didn't flinch. If Naomi's happiness depends on living under your thumb, then she was never truly happy. Naomi gasped softly, torn between us. Mom, please. I turned to her, my voice softer. Naomi, I stayed silent for years. I let him belittle me so you could have peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace, it's prison. Reed slammed the glass onto the table, shattering it. The girls cried out from the stairs. Ella shouted, Dad, stop. Reed's chest heaved as he looked at his daughters, their fear finally piercing through his rage. For the first time, he seemed to see himself clearly. But instead of softening, he broke further. This is what you wanted, Merle.
To turn them against me.
To rip my family apart. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so every word landed like a stone. No, Reed. You did that. Every sneer, every joke at my expense, every time you put your ego before your wife, before your daughters. They saw it. They lived it. And now, they finally know the truth. Ella's voice rang out, trembling but strong.
She's right.
You always made Grandma feel small. But she isn't. She's amazing. And I want to be like her, not like you. Maddie nodded, tears on her cheeks. Me too. Reed staggered back as though struck, their words cutting deeper than mine ever could. Naomi covered her mouth, sobbing. Not from fear now, but from release. I placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to carry this anymore, Naomi. You don't have to choose between your husband and your mother. You only have to choose yourself. Reed stared at us all, the fight draining out of him. For once, he had no words, no weapons left. He stormed past me, out the door, slamming it so hard the walls shook. Silence followed, heavy but cleansing. Naomi collapsed into my arms, trembling. Mom, what have I done? My marriage. I pulled her close. You haven't lost a marriage, Naomi. You've freed yourself from a cage. And your daughters just gained the truth. Ella and Maddie rushed down, clinging to us both. For the first time in years, I felt not fractured but whole. I held them tight, whispering words I needed them to hear. Strength isn't loud. It isn't cruel. It's quiet. It's steady. And it always demands respect. Through the tears, Naomi nodded. For the first time, I saw in her eyes not fear, but recognition.